Hi, I'm Sarah Cox.
And I'm Mark Westcott.
And welcome to the Power of Great Questions. Today I get to actually pick on Mark. And we're going to ask Mark what are his fascinating questions.
You are, and I feel very privileged to be here with you today, Sarah, and you're going to actually ask me the questions rather than you and me asking other people questions and making them squirm. That's what you're going to do with me today.
And I know Mark's going to have some great questions. Mark, first question. People ask me, what do you do? What do you actually do?
That's a really great question, Sarah. Even my daughter Angela doesn't actually know when she has to explain to her friends, what does your dad do? I don't think she actually knows how to explain it properly either. But let me just say, I help people create extraordinary legacies, and that's not just about what happens when people pass on. It's actually about what happens in the here and now. What's the reputation you're creating? What's the etch you instill in the lives of others, in the lives of your family, the people that you come in contact with, your clients, your friends, and so on. What's the opportunity you have to be the best that you can be? And that's why I love the work that we do together, and because that's very much about focusing on the present, focusing on the now, to help people be the best, have the best businesses they can have, to have the best lives, the most profitable, productive businesses, have teams of people that work for them, that are engaged, happy and joyous in regard to their lives as well. So that's kind of the legacy that they're creating now. But obviously when the time comes and they do pass on, to make sure that the estate plans and so on are well taken care of as well. And that's why we work together so well. That there's sort of a transition from you at one end right through from right now right through to when it's all over.
And and that we're actually writing a book, Live Complete, Die Neat.
That's right, and it's absolutely the perfect topic. Live complete, die neat, and it's actually encompasses absolutely everything that you and I do, and it's a great way of looking at life, to make sure you live the best life you can, be the best person you can along the way. The people that you affect, to make sure that you affect them in a really positive and constructive way, be the best you can and allow them to be the best they can be, and then when the time comes, to make sure that those that you leave behind, the legacy that you want from your heart for those people is what you pass on to them. And legacy isn't just about money. It's about your reputation. It's about, I always think about what my kids think of me. What my kids will think of me. I want them to say, wow, Dad positively affected the lives of many, and that I want to be part of the legacy I leave.
Great. And you, Mark has an amazing vision of a 25-year vision, where he's writing 100 books. And can you tell everyone what else you're going to do in that 25 years?
You're doing a good job already.
There's a lot of books he's written. The 90-minute exit strategy, the dream solution. I'm cheating here. I'm actually looking down at the books. But what else?
Look, I've written a few books already, mainly in the estate planning area. 7 Significant Will Killers is one of the books that I wrote to help people to think about the things they haven't thought about as part of their estate planning and so on. The 90-minute exit strategy, to help people sort of to realise that it can be done really simply. And the work I really loved doing was the estate planning hits and misses, where I got to speak with some of the top estate planning lawyers from around Australia in regard to why is it that everyone doesn't get their estate planning done, and why is it that only 5% of the population has a valid or legal or relevant will or estate plan or a succession plan, and so on. But getting back to the original question, yes, I created a 25-year plan, and I'm absolutely excited about my 25-year vision, and my goal for the 25 years is to save the lives of 1 million families. And by save their lives, I mean to save their estates, so that when mum or dad pass away, that the kids all still get together for Christmas. There's harmony within the family. What mum and dad wanted for their family, and this isn't just about money, but what mum and dad wanted for their family is going to come to fruition, and the family unit goes on in a happy, harmonious way, and we think fondly of those that have passed, and that everything they wanted has been documented and implemented, and there's been a smooth transition between the generations. That's my goal, to positively affect, not me personally, but I want to help other advisors through the tools and capabilities we use to be able to go out to their clients as well, and to pass on those things and make sure that they are able to do that for their clients as well. And it's a very lofty goal. We'll have an exponential result. I can't affect 40,000 every year, but I know that as time goes on, there will be some exponential growth in regard to what we do that will get us towards that number, and I'm very excited about that.
Great.
And the 100 books, which you've mentioned already, what I'm writing is one book each quarter. I've committed to write one book each quarter on estate planning to simplify it for people. And the first two books are just about ready to go. We've written them. We're just waiting for the printers, and we're very excited about that. And the final thing I'm doing in regard to my 25-year goal is I've created a website called thelegacylounge.com, and with Tom McVeigh, a good friend and a very capable solicitor, estate planning solicitor, we're creating a podcast series. We've already done the first dozen podcasts called 7 Minute Wisdom, and we're just chunking everything down into bite-sized pieces so that people have the time to digest it, and hopefully it'll move them towards being more motivated to get their estate planning, succession planning sorted.
Great, Mark. And in regards to our book, The Power of Great Questions, how are asking questions relevant in your work?
Do you know what? That's a great question, Sarah. Thank you for asking. Look, as you know, when we first got together to talk about this book, we both independently had a burning passion about the significance and power of what questions do in people's minds. And I believe in any consulting and any advice giving, and whilst it's a very hard thing to do, we all have that tendency to want to tell people what they should do rather than ask them, and that's probably the problem with most salespeople and most advisors in the world, is that everyone's ready to give advice, but the power is in asking the right question. And so we're very passionate about this, both of us, and I think any people who are really good in the world in regard to advising, or in regard to consulting work, or even just within their family, if you can find the right question to ask, you can create a succinct question and you can ask it in a way that really gets people thinking, and so they can come up with their own answer, then that's when you're really valuable. See, people want to think it's their idea, not yours, so if you tell them, they'll be resistant. If you ask them and they discover what they need to do, they'll take action, because it's been their idea, not mine. Yeah. And I think that's why. What do you think about that?
I've got a lot of thoughts about asking powerful questions, but I think if you ask a powerful question and it's an open question, then it creates dialogue. So once you ask a question, people can start to be open. They start to speak, and all sorts of things can come out. Particularly an open dialogue question. If it's a yes or no question, it's actually it doesn't go very far as the unconscious mind and unravelling things that people don't know they don't know.
And you're right. And oftentimes the yes/no questions are manipulative in sorts anyway. I mean, we all remember back to our Sales Training 101, where you're taught to ask questions where people have to say yes, and so that's why yes/no questions sometimes can be utilised in a manipulative way. But if you avoid that and you ask significant questions which really get to people's hearts, and I think that's what you've got to find, is not one that gets to so much even their head but gets into their heart, then that's where you're really going to create some value for people, and that's where our greatest questions will have the greatest influence.
Yeah. And sometimes if you've met a person and you ask a lot of questions and you're really interested in that person, you come from an authentic base, sometimes they'll go away and go, oh, that was the most interesting person that I've ever met. And all you've done is ask the questions. But they've got to speak about themselves, and people love speaking about themselves, and being genuinely interested. I am genuinely interested in other people, and I like to find out more about that person. And that's the power of great questions too, because it builds relationships. It builds a foundation of trust.
I think there's, we've talked about this, but I think there's 3 levels of interest. I think there's interest, where you show interest in something. The next level is where you're interesting, and that's where you might have had experiences, and you may have travelled, you may have studied, you may have a whole range of issues that you've paid attention to in your life, and you become interesting. So if you're talking to a group, you're interesting. But the greatest power is in being interested, and that is in paying attention and asking questions. So once again, the power of great questions is that it helps you to raise to be what I call the highest level on the interest chart, and that is to be interesting. And that's what we all say that again, to be interested. And when you get to being interested in other people and you make it all about them, not about you, that's where you create the greatest value in life. And ironically, yes, people then say, wow, wasn't Mark an interesting guy? And all I've done is ask 3 questions and listen.
Yeah. And that's the basis of communication, really.
Absolutely.
So, Mark, now to your questions. Can you share with us the questions that you've come up that are some of the most important questions? Absolutely.
And right off the bat here, this is the one that I love the most, and I can take absolutely no credit for this question. I've spent a lot of time with strategic coach and Dan Sullivan, and I know this is a question of Dan, so I'll give him credit for this. But my favourite question is, what is the one thing that will keep you fascinated and motivated for the rest of your life? What is the one thing that will keep you fascinated and motivated for the rest of your life? I love that question, and it's so hard for some people to answer. So hard because people say, well, I've got all these things that I love doing and I'm interested in and so on. But each of us has a passion, and dare I use the word unique ability and unique interests and so on. And inside of us all, there's something that's burning away that if we're allowed to pursue that, that really would take us through the rest of our life, because we'd always be interested in getting better and better. So really what it's asking for is, what's an activity that if you did it all the time, you're going to get better at it, you're going to enjoy it more, and you're going to have more fun, because as you get better at doing it, you're going to create better results for other people. That's my thought.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's a specific question. So if you have to come up with one thing, it's going to be the most important thing that you feel is the activity that excites you and interests you for the rest of your life. And is there a mechanism that you suggest that people come up with that one thing?
Well, look, there is. There's when I talk to clients, I take them through a process of what we call a bit of a sprint to get them thinking about a whole range of things that keep them interested. And then what I do is just by conversation really bring them down to the one thing. See, this all comes back to the movie City Slickers, when Charlie held his finger up and said, "What's the one thing?" And if you understand in life what the power of the one thing is, then you'll get through life. So in my life, I've seen a lot of reference back to having one burning passion that keeps you going for the rest of your life. And look, in fairness, there might be a personal passion that you have, and there might be a business passion you have, but that's all I'm going to give you is 2 things, okay? One personal and one business. And for me, obviously, with my 25-year vision of affecting the lives of 1 million families, I mean, that comes from a personal experience. That comes from a hurt that I've experienced in my life, and many of you will have heard of Brian's story, my great mate, who was unfortunately killed in a car accident, and that, without going into all the details, I mean, that's affected me, and that is the motivation that I use every day to help make sure that what happened to Brian and his family doesn't happen to other families. So it's easy for me that's been easy for me to work out what my burning internal passion is.
Yeah, sometimes it takes tragedy or something that we grew up with, something that programmed us to take the wisdom and the learning and move it forward so we can contribute and give back to other people in our learning.
Absolutely. Well said, Sarah. Yeah, that's so very true.
And what is your next question?
How does what you do, Sarah, transform people's lives?
Well, I can answer that. How long do you want?
I know.
Yeah.
And you have got a good answer to that, and that's why we're doing the book together, is because we have similar thoughts in regard to these things. But I'm going to tell you now that most people have no idea. Most people live a transactional life, not a transformational life. And I just want to pause and talk about what that means. See, transactions, a lot of people get involved in daily transactions or weekly transactions, and their whole life is about one transaction after another after another. Transactions are very stressful. They're very short-term focused, and very, very focused usually on cash too. You know, it's sort of like, if I make this sale, I'm going to earn some money. I think in life we need to turn that upside down and say, well, if I can transform someone's life, and transforming your life may involve a whole lot of transactions, and that's okay, but you're focusing what you're doing on your transformation of someone else or other people's lives, and I think that's what the most important thing is. And so why I ask that question is to get people thinking about not what are the transactions along that path, what is the ultimate transformation they want to make in someone else's life. Because when you create a transformation, or you're working towards creating a transformation in someone else's life, you have a lifetime relationship with that person. It's a long-term relationship. It's a serious relationship. It's one that you both want. So you're only going to be doing this with people you enjoy and people who you want to deal with. So, you know, it allows you to be selective in the sorts of people you're working with and you're dealing with. But also it's going to be very rewarding, because for me, and this is why I ask the question, is for other people to experience this, is if you can look at the big picture and see how you've transformed someone sustainably, for want of your word, if you've sustainably transformed someone, you are going to be a really important and a really valuable person in their lives. And I think that's something that, with the way I've asked that question with so many people, most people aspire to transforming, not just selling transactions.
Yeah, and I guess when I think about my business, Sustainable Transformations, I think
it's a great name too.
It starts with yourself, because in order for you to look at how I can transform someone else's lives, then am I being my best, healthiest, happiest self? Because if you're not, how can you transform another person, or how can you transform a business? And this is the thing, I suppose. When we look outside ourselves, we're automatically looking at contribution, growth and contribution, which is the highest spiritual needs. And therefore, if we're looking outside ourselves, which gives us the most satisfaction, we look inside ourselves and say, well, hang on, how am I transformed? How can I be a better person? How can I transform myself into being my highest version of myself?
Very good. You're absolutely correct. You're after my third question, aren't you?
And last question.
This is a great one. You know, this is a more recent one for me, and it basically is, what are the three things that you learned in your early years that have created the greatest value in your life and have allowed you to be the person that you are now?
Right.
So what are the three things from the earlier stages in your life that have allowed you to be who you are now? And there's a really great reason that I asked this question, and in the chapter that we've just gone through with you, we talked about gratitude as one of the things that you talk about in your 5 daily disciplines. Now, if you get people to think back and say, okay, who are the either the experiences or the three people who most influenced you, or it might be one or two people that influenced you, it may have just been other experiences, but it allows people to be grateful and to acknowledge those that formed who you've become today. So if I asked you to think about, you know, who are the three people or who are the three experiences that allowed you to grow up to be the fantastic person that you are, you're going to go back and you're going to go, wow, that was you know, this person or that person, and wasn't that great that those people came into my lives to teach me the lessons that allowed me to be who I am today. So it's a bit of the payback. It's the gratitude, and it allows you to focus on what that is. But the second thing is, it allows you to think about, wow, well, if those experiences allowed me to be the best person that I am now, how can I be that for someone else? So how can I affect other people in the same way so that in 20, 30 years' time they can look back and say, well, I'm really grateful for the fact that I was allowed to learn that lesson, or I was given that wisdom or given that advice to make me a better person, to make me the person that I am today. That's why I asked that question.
Okay, Mark. And with can I ask a question on your question?
Maybe.
Because we often look back in the past and we hang on to the past. And we keep memorising all the bad things that happened, the tragedies and the people we met. Instead of taking the learnings from the past and the wisdom from the past, can you use tragedy and bad experiences for learning and wisdom? Because I know I certainly have.
No, and I know exactly what you're talking about. But look, I agree with you. Some of those experiences may have been tragedies, and you may have learned that you don't put your hand on the stove because you might burn your hand, and that's a good life lesson to take forward, and that's on a really dumbed down level. But I mean, there are bad things that happen in people's lives, and in some cases they might be 3 bad experiences that people have brought forward and they've learned from them. And I would still be grateful for those learnings and those experiences, because they've taught me not to be that person, or not to do that activity, or not to be involved with those types of people. I'm just going to cut in here and say I'm a great believer that the past is there for a reason. It's just to teach us, and we've just got to cut from the past and leave everything behind, except the experiences and the good things. We need to cut stuff out of our lives, past things that are holding us back and so on. So that's kind of a different topic, but there is an opportunity to learn from bad experiences, but also I think most people also just more easily learn from great things that have happened in their lives. So for some people there's going to be a bit of a mixture, but whatever it is and whatever it is that you learn from, I think even bad stuff, there's an opportunity to be grateful and to allow you then to say, well, okay, how can I use those experiences to make my future better, and maybe to affect positively the lives of other people as well.
I guess I asked that question because some of the most greatest people and inspiring people of the world have had tragedy or experiences with people along the way, and that has been the very motivation to make them the greatest person that they can be. And I think you mentioned about Brian.
Yes.
So that was the motivation behind your 25-year plan. And so it's important. I can't think of anybody that I've met that motivates me in a positive way, yet I can look at experiences that have motivated me to do what I do today, which is transform people's lives, and myself, obviously. And I continue to do that.
No, that's great. Well, I did say 3 things.
Yeah, really great.
3 things. I didn't say 3 people. I said, 3 things? So
yeah.
For some people, it's not about people. It's about events.
Yeah. So it's it could be positive or negative events that motivate you, and you've learned and gained wisdom from them to move you forward into that transformational person you can be that transforms other people's lives.
Absolutely. So if you look at what I looked at when before we did this interview, was to say, well, okay, what are 3 questions that nobody else normally asks and will make people think the most about their answers? And I hope, like yours were, I hope my 3 questions, although you had 4 questions. Hopefully mine.
Do you want another one?
No, I'm happy with 3, but thank you for asking.
That's the great thing about simplicity, being specific.
That's right. Having boundaries. That's right.
We all need boundaries.
That's right. But I hope those, for the people who are either watching this or reading this or listening to this, I hope those questions, Sarah, have created some value for them, even if they just think about the answers themselves, even if they never use them with anyone else. If thinking about the answers to those creates some value for people, then that's great. But there might be people out there that think, well, that's a good question, I might ask that.
Yeah. Well, it's stimulated our conversation, and I very much enjoyed it. Thank you, Mark.
Sarah, thanks for your time, and as usual, keep working on the power of great questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Cox.
And I'm Mark Westcott.